There's a saying from the old murder investigation manual, and it said, "Think murder until proven otherwise."
Somebody must have seen something, somebody knows where he is, you know, somebody may be keeping him against his will, I don't know, there's all sorts going on in my head, honestly, it's just awful.
I don't know what to say anymore. Obviously everyone wants him to come home, I'm praying he comes home every night.
I just want my body back, that's it. So, I just want my body back.
On the sun-drenched holiday island of Tenerife, the vibrant beats of a dance festival gave way to a chilling mystery. On June the 17th, a 19-year-old Brit vanished without a trace, leaving an island shrouded in questions and a family desperate for answers. But how long will it be until they get them? Join me as I dissect the baffling case of missing Jay Slater. Jay Slater has been missing in Tenerife for over 2 weeks now, disappearing on the morning of June the 17th after attending a dance festival. Despite intensive efforts involving helicopters, drones and sniffer dogs scouring the island, no trace of him has been found. The official search has been called off, but the case remains open, with Spanish police maintaining that several lines of investigation are still being pursued. But who is Jay Slater? Well, he's a 19-year-old apprentice bricklayer. Jay's mum describes him as a normal guy and very popular, with a large circle of friends, often with a smile on his face and a pretty happy-go-lucky kind of demeanour, who went to the NRG festival in Tenerife for a bit of fun. It was said he was going there to put behind him a particularly unsavoury episode in his life, after Jay had been convicted, along with others, of seriously assaulting a young man. For this serious matter, Jay was sentenced to an 18-month community order, which featured 25 days of rehabilitation activities and 150 hours of unpaid work. So clearly a substantial punishment which reflected the serious nature of the crime. So on the Sunday night before Jay disappears, at about 8:30 p.m, he sends a Snapchat of him enjoying himself at this dance event. And not long after that, he leaves in the company of 2 men who are older than Jay, by all accounts, and have a vehicle. And they drive to the north of the island, so quite a way away from the resort of Playa de las Americas, where all this fun and dancing is going on, to an Airbnb that these 2 men have rented. It was a 2-bedroom property that cost £40 a night and was in the small village of Masca, a quite remote spot which has got a very mountainous, rugged, treacherous kind of area surrounding it. One journalist has reported that Jay didn't meet these 2 men randomly on that night, but that he'd met them before and a bit of a friendship had struck up among them. Very little is known about these 2 men, other than that they are described as being in their late 30s, early 40s. One apparently has the nickname of Johnny Vegas. We know that the Spanish police did speak to these men back in the early stages of Jay's disappearance, and the Guardia Civil were very quick to go public and say these men are not connected to Jay's disappearance. At 7:30 a.m. on the Monday, Jay posts a Snapchat photograph of him holding a cigarette, and we can identify that he's actually on the front doorstep of the Airbnb that the 2 men had rented. If you look at it carefully, you can see there's like a mosaic kind of pattern, which is identical. So it's indisputable that is where Jay is at 7:30 that morning. At 8 a.m, Jay rings his friend Bradley, who he's gone on the trip with, and it's a video call. And Bradley can see that Jay is in a sort of rocky, rugged outcrop type of area, and that Jay appears to slip.
He goes, I'll ring you back, because I think someone else was ringing him. And he probably, if thinking like me, he would have went back up and started walking around the path again.
At 8:30 that morning, Jay calls Lucy May. He tells her that he's got 1% battery left on his phone. He's thirsty and that he doesn't have a drink. At 8:50, Jay's phone powers down. It's run out of battery life. And Lucy May, soon afterwards, makes a missing person report. The Guardia Civil begin their search later on, close to the point where Jay's phone powered down. On Tuesday the 18th of June, Jay's mum, Debbie, is told about her missing son, and she very quickly gets on an aeroplane and flies to Tenerife. It's also on this day that she receives a Snapchat message saying that her son owes a lot of money and that she's never going to see him again. Now, on that Snapchat message, apparently, was the telephone number of the phone that had sent that. By this time, Jay's disappearance had become widely known about, certainly in the UK, and social media gossip was already kicking in. So I think that was probably more malicious, sent by somebody with nothing better to do in their sad life, rather than somebody who actually knew what had happened to Jay. By now, on the Tuesday, the Guardia Civil, the Spanish police, have started their search. And on about the Thursday, they searched a 22,000-foot ravine, a vast area, and also caves, some of which had the nickname from the locals, the Badlands. By now, there were so many journalists there speaking to local people that stories of other people disappearing in this kind of area were beginning to surface. A woman who ran a cafe said that cyclists sometimes disappear in this very difficult terrain and that their bodies are not found for months. Well, regardless, the Spanish police did continue the search, and at one point they had extra dogs drafted in from Madrid. So they were clearly doing as much as their resources would allow them to do. At one point, apparently, Lancashire police offered their assistance to the Spanish police, but they turned that down. And I suspect I know the reason why. Policing is all about control. The minute you draft in another police service or another law enforcement body, you surrender some of that control because you don't know exactly what they're going to do, and you don't know if they are going to start communicating either with families or with the public by doing press conferences. So I think the Guardia Civil were very, very loath to surrender control of this search, this investigation, in any way, shape or form. And besides, let's remember, Lancashire police manifestly failed to find Nicola Bulley. It was members of the public that found her body, tragically. So perhaps they don't exactly have a glittering reputation when it comes to finding missing people.
As you can see, there's a bus stop literally a few paces from the house itself. That is where he would have got the bus back down south to Los Cristianos, where he was staying.
On Saturday, the 22nd of June, a member of the public comes forward saying that they believe they saw Jay at 6 p.m. on the Monday that he'd gone missing, in company with two men. Now, the Guardia Civil were not able to confirm that, and the mayor of the town where this sighting apparently was says Jay is most definitely not here. On the Sunday, a GoFundMe account, which had been set up by Lucy May and is still open, should anybody want to donate, after only 3 days, it surpassed its target of £30,000. It's a lot of money, and it caused a lot of gossip, rumour and speculation as to what that money would be used for and what were Lucy May's motives. I've seen some of this gossip and conspiracy theorising, and I have to say some of it is particularly hateful and entirely unnecessary. In amongst all of this, a grainy CCTV image is released. The police apparently scoured that area, finding no trace of him, but they also released some more information about the 2 men that Jay had left the musical festival with, got in the car with and driven to the Airbnb in Masca. I found it unusual that within the space of about a week and a half, the police have gone from these men have no relevance to the inquiry to suddenly releasing more details about them. Could it be that the Guardia Civil, as time went on, were thinking, we put all our resources towards searching the mountainous terrain, could it be now that we should have been looking more broadly at all options?
The search is over. There's no longer any sign of police in this rugged, beautiful but treacherous part of Tenerife.
On Sunday, the 30th of June, the police announced that they were calling off the search for Jay in this rugged, mountainous area. I can't speak for the family, but I'm suspecting this must have been a crushing blow. The practicalities are that they cannot search forever. They have other commitments, other obligations, other crimes to investigate. And so therefore, at some point, it does have to be brought to a halt. But their entire investigation was not over because TikTokers and other people, particularly a TikToker called Paul Arnott, were on the ground doing their own investigation work.
So guys, this is the location basically of Jay's last 3 words to GPS signal. Now, from what we do know from mountain rescue, we know that that GPS signal was sent pretty fast. There's a few other things that I'm working out right now, which I'm not going to talk too much about on social media, but there's a few other things I'm working out. I'm building a timeline.
And Paul found a pair of sunglasses, which he thought may have belonged to Jay. And the Guardia Civil were interested in these. In fact, they asked Paul to forensically preserve them in paper and not plastic. And Paul did the right thing and did hand them over to the police. On the same day, Tuesday, the 2nd of July, a journalist spotted 2 plainclothes police officers with forensic overshoes over their day shoes coming out of the Airbnb. And a local witness said they'd gone in there apparently at about 9 a.m. and stayed for 2 hours until about 11 when the journalist spotted them coming out. This journalist approached them and they were pretty tight-lipped. But to me, this is potentially very concerning. There's a saying with regards to the gathering and the preserving of forensic evidence that you only get one chance to get it right. Now, this Airbnb had been taken off the market. You couldn't rent it between the time that the 2 guys left it and Tuesday, the 2nd of July. But had the police been there before? Had they forensically examined the property before? And if not, why not? A good couple of weeks had gone by. And surely, if the police had taken an overview of this case, that we will consider every option and we will examine every possibility, rather than perhaps solely focusing on the mountainous search, then a full and thorough forensic search of that Airbnb property would have taken place almost on day one of the inquiry. Now, I don't know if that's been done, but we surely would have heard there would have been lots of activity of forensic examiners going in and out the property. People would have been seen in full forensic suits, including masks and the such like, and there has not been one mention of any of that kind of activity. Nor have we heard about any vehicle being seized and being forensically examined. There's a saying from the old murder investigation manual, and it said, "Think murder until proven otherwise." I understand why the Guardia Civil may have focused on the mountainous area. After all, it's where Jay's battery went flat. He had no drink. He was thirsty, unfamiliar territory. It would make sense. But by the same token, you have to keep a completely open mind and examine all other possibilities.
So I've arrived back in Masca, and it's a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, guys. It's a bit crazy. The police have been called on me.
TikTokers, Snapchat detectives, people who go on X and Facebook and say what they think are an everyday part of major crime investigations these days. Law enforcement have got to get used to this. In fact, they've got to embrace it, because I'm sure that in amongst the gossip, rumour, the hateful and unwelcome nonsense, there are some nuggets in there. So I think on each and every occasion, an officer should be designated to go through all of the social media traffic. Of course, the officer in charge of the case needs to push all that to one side, to ignore it. Don't listen to the noise. Don't be distracted by it. Follow the information. Follow the evidence. Go where that takes you. But it would be very useful to have an officer poring over all of the other traffic, all of the social media chit-chat, because who knows, maybe buried deep within inside all of that is a golden nugget that could be very useful. Let's look at some of the theories. The most obvious one, definitely as far as Spanish police were concerned, that Jay got lost, disorientated in very rugged terrain, a mountainous area in which he was completely unfamiliar, and that unfortunately he may have passed away out there. Another one is that he was kidnapped. I'm pretty happy to discount that, because kidnaps are usually accompanied by ransoms, and we've heard no such mention of that apart from the nonsense message sent to Jay's mum very early on in the inquiry. And another question that a number of people have spoken about is that it would have been an 11-hour walk from the Airbnb in Masca to where Jay was staying. He'd missed a bus apparently, but there would be another one along in a couple of hours' time. Why was it, if this is the case, that Jay chose to walk? A question that I've been asking myself, and I remained puzzled by, is why didn't Jay, after his phone battery is virtually running out, he's got no drink, he's missed a bus, why didn't he go back to the Airbnb, knock on the door and ask those two fellas, if they were still there, to charge his phone, have a drink, have a rest and wait for the next bus? We don't know. And the harsh reality is we may never know. Although from the bottom of my heart, I sincerely hope that one day the truth about what happened to Jay can be discovered so that his family may find some peace, some answers, and some kind of closure on whatever happened to the missing Jay Slater.